What is up, you guys, and welcome back to the Hunters Association. I'm Knox, and it is Recommendation Tuesday, so it is my turn to throw a recommendation out your way, and we are taking a look at The Breaker, okay, which is one of my favorite stories that I've ever read. It is a martial arts story, and one of the best ones out there, in my opinion. For those who know me, I am very much obsessed with old school kung fu flicks like Game of Death, Five Deadly Venoms, Shogun Assassin, Kung Fu Hustle, Ip Man, things like that. That's my shit, you know what I mean? So when The Breaker came out, this was like a really big deal for me because of how much I grew up on that kind of story. But it's got a really cool flip on its premise to where it feels very much like an old school Kung Fu flick or movie, but it takes place in the modern world. So you get like all of the warring clans and dojos and disciplines, and styles and whatnot, but all taking place in like modern day South Korea. So it's written by John Guk Jin and illustrated by Jin Hwan Park, or Kamaro is the pen name that he uses. And it's got one of the coolest settings that I think I've ever seen for a martial arts story. Sure, you have a lot of martial arts stories that take place, in modern times, but none of them really feel like they execute it the way that The Breaker does. Because for one, it's definitely a superhuman story. So there is an energy system involved called ki, which allows you to control your inner energy in a way similar to the ki that we've seen before, like Dragon Ball and whatnot. But it's a lot more grounded than Dragon Ball. It doesn't get ridiculous. It still stays relatively grounded. And The Breaker tells the story of a bullied kid named Shi Woon Yi who gets thrown into this hidden underworld of martial arts known as the Muram, from a chance encounter that he has with the strongest martial artist in the world that's actually undercover as his teacher at Shi Woon's high school. So it's got a lot of depth to it. It's very compelling the entire time. The progression that you get, between Shi Woon, through as a main character throughout the series, and his teacher, Gu Moon Ryong, or the Nine Arts Dragon, it is one of the best teacher-disciple relationships that I think I've ever seen in my life. You know what I mean? And you'll see if you ever start reading it, like, that's not an exaggeration. Like, anything that you would want from a martial arts story is here. And I think one of the coolest things about The Breaker is how political the dojo and like clan system is, because like you have these schools that all have obvious history with each other and respect for each other, and these martial artists understand the energy and the styles so well that they can take a look at a dead body and see, like, run the autopsy and go, oh, okay, this character was killed by a ki attack. Nothing like we see in Dragon Ball. It doesn't ever get ridiculous. Motherfuckers don't blow up planets or anything like that. But the ki energy system allows you to attack past the body, pressure points, things like that. And I think the strongest thing someone ever does, I think the craziest feat someone does is like destroy a military tank, or something with their bare hands. So it doesn't ever get really crazy, which is something that I personally love about it. But The Breaker, what I was saying about the clans and how much respect they have for each other and how understood these fighting styles that they use are, is that, one of these masters could take a look at a dead body and go, okay, this body was killed by this technique, and the main practitioners of this technique is this school. So now we know that this school killed our homeboy, and now we have beef with that school. It's shit like that, you know what I mean? And it's really fucking cool. It's really high octane once it really starts getting off the ground. After about 10 chapters is when the story really starts to take off. But it basically follows Shi Woon, and his bullying, from the beginning of the series until about chapter 10, which is really good for his development. But a lot of people that I've talked to anyway about it, I've heard that people have dropped it, at like the, before the 10 chapter mark because of how slow, it was or whatever. I personally don't understand why you would do that. But, I mean, you got to definitely at least, get to a point where it starts to like pick up, it's an action story, it's an action story. So read it until action really starts, you know what I mean? If you want to properly gauge, what the action is like. But there's two parts to The Breaker. There's The Breaker, and then there's The Breaker New Waves. They're both completed stories in their own regard. The main character is very much like Deku as far as his progression goes, in the martial arts world. But he does start out very weak. So there's a very big payoff, once he really starts to blossom as a martial artist and kind of like come into his own and understand what kind of world he's living in. So I really can't recommend it enough. If you are into, Baki the Grappler, if you're into it's actually a lot more like History's Mightiest Disciple Kenichi, If you're a fan of History's Mightiest Disciple Kenichi, then you'll love this as well. But it's a manhwa, so probably, you know, I mean this is a webtoon channel, so you guys are probably all used to to Korean names, but other than that, I can't recommend it enough, man. All the characters are amazing. The action is incredible. The art is incredible. I don't think there's a bad character in the whole shit. You know what I mean? So The Breaker, yeah, absolutely. If you guys have any, if you guys ever want to talk about it, if you guys pick it up and start reading it, holler at me on Twitter, holler at me on Discord. But that's going to do it for my recommendation. I don't want it to be too long. Just take my word for it. If you like martial arts shit, you will love The Breaker if you haven't read it yet. So holla at your guala, okay? This is Knox. This was Recommendation Tuesdays. This is the Hunters Association podcast. I will catch y'all next time.